Conditions May Apply by CinnamonPinecones. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 43. Presidential Alert! The boys are bonding. Shinso didn't push him to explain. He didn't ask. He just got him out of the situation and let it go. He could tell he wanted to ask more questions, but he didn't, and he gave all their tickets and tokens away. He was so nice. He was currently sitting on the train holding on to his cute little DJ plush on the way to the Shinsos. The two Shinsos were engaging in their usual banter, but Izuku hadn't said much since they left the arcade. Sometimes he just got into these moods where speaking felt like he had to drag every word up his throat, but he knew it would pass, and neither of the Shinsos brought it up. They were too kind. For the second time today, he couldn't help but feel that he didn't deserve their kindness, but he told himself that didn't matter. For the time being, he had it, and he might as well enjoy it while it lasted. It wasn't fair to them, anyway, to let himself fall into the gloom in his head when they invited him over for dinner. So he did his best to pull himself out of it. By the time they got to the front door, he was feeling a little more himself. "All right, boys, I'll be in my office if you need me. You gonna go beat up my son again?" she asked Izuku. Shinso piped up, apparently getting tired of the running bit. "He's not beating me up. I'm learning," he insisted. "Right, Midoriya?" Izuku did his best to force back a laugh and bite down a smile. He kinda was just beating him up out back, but that's all part of the learning process. Still biting down on the grin, he let out a very non-convincing mm-hmm and nodded his head. "Oh, come on, not you too," he whined. He couldn't hold back his laughter anymore when Shinso's son started cackling. The defeated look on Shinso's face was priceless. "No, you are," he insisted between laughs, "but I'm still kind of just beating you up." Shinso shot him a half-hearted glare and shook his head as he walked inside. "Gently. I'm beating you up gently," he clarified. At that, Shinso-san started laughing again. "Aw, you're too sweet, Midoriya," she cooed. Once Shinso gave up on giving him the stink eye, he asked, "Did you want to go out back? We could keep our shoes on and just go through the gate," he offered. Did he want to? Yes, he did. It was a lot of fun to teach Shinso, and it kept him in touch with his fighting fundamentals. But he did still have stitches in his leg. He thought a moment before deciding it wasn't fair to Uptown to risk prolonging his recovery. "We can go through some simple drills, but I hurt my leg and I'm not supposed to move it around too much," he admitted. "Midoriya, we've been walking around all day. Why didn't you tell me?" Shinso exclaimed. "It's fine. I'm not doing anything that would hurt it. Walking around is fine," he tried to assure, but Shinso wasn't having it. "No, we're sitting down," he declared as he started taking off his shoes. "What'd you even do to it?" "Oh, well, time to lie. I, fell and sliced my thigh. Had to get a few stitches," he said with an awkward laugh. That wasn't too far from the truth. "Oh, damn, dude. You've been walking around all day with stitches? Doesn't that hurt?" Shinso asked incredulously. "A little, but not nearly as much as it did. It's been a few days. They'll be out soon," he tried to reassure. "You're crazy, Midoriya. We're taking it easy for the rest of the day. Dr. Shinso's orders," he asserted as he led them up the stairs. "I prescribed television and at least 3 hours of vegging out before dinner." Yes, sir, doctor, sir, he shot back coyly. Shinso rolled his eyes as he held open the door to his room. Welcome to my humble abode, Mikasa, Sukasa, etc., he proclaimed with no enthusiasm whatsoever. The room was mostly shades of black and gray, but there were artful splashes of color in the posters and string lights lining the wall. Shinso tossed his new cat plushie onto the bed next to an oversized Gengar plush. It wasn't too tidy, but it wasn't a mess either. It fit Shinso well. He flopped down onto the bed and scooted over to give Izuku some room and turned on the TV. What do you want to watch, Greenie? I dunno. What? Do you not watch TV either? Shinso asked sarcastically. Seriously? He exclaimed. Midoriya, what do you do? Jump around and slice my leg open, apparently, he offered. Incorrigible. Absolutely incorrigible, Shinso said as he shook his head and then buried it in his hands. Hey, I watch the news at least, he defended. You're not helping your case, Greenie. You need some brain-rotting, pointless entertainment immediately, he said as he turned on some cartoon Izuku had never seen before. They sat there for hours, watching nonsense and making fun of all the stupid things the characters did and how none of it adhered to real life in the slightest. It felt so strange to be so normal, to be so relaxed in the presence of someone else. The darkest corners of his mind tried to tell him he didn't deserve it, or it was all going to come crumbling down around him any day now. But he did his best to shove those thoughts down. He was happy, even if he had to fight himself for the right to feel it properly. Shinso-san had gotten caught up in whatever book she was reading, so they had a late dinner. The dish was as delicious as it had been the first time, and by the time they'd put all the bowls and cups away, the sun was starting to set. It was time for him to go. He didn't want to go. He must have broadcasted his hesitance because as he stood in the kitchen, after handing Shinso the last dried dish, Shinso-san piped up, Midoriya, it's already pretty dark out. Do you want to ask your parents if you could stay the night? He looked over to Shinso to gauge his reaction. He perked up like a meerkat coming out of their burrow. He couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. It felt so nice to be wanted. Yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't mind. I'll text my mom, he offered. He pulled out his phone and fiddled with it for a moment, pretending to send a message. All right, I would say don't stay up too late, but I know there's no point with this one around, she said as she gave Shinso a playful shove. I'm an old lady, so my bedtime is promptly at 10:30, so just don't make too much of a racket after that. She left back upstairs, probably to go bury herself back in whatever book she'd been reading, and bid them good night. Okay, Greenie, now that we've got the time, I will be forcing you to participate in one of the greatest and laziest pastimes I know, watching bad movies. We will be staying up until we can't keep our eyes open and making fun of bad scripts and even worse special effects, Shinso declared as he brought his fist down into his open palm to drive the point home. Izuku giggled at his antics and resigned himself to his fate. Could I, could I take a shower first? He asked tentatively. He hadn't had a proper shower since school let out. He'd been washing his hair with hand soap in gas station bathrooms and rinsing off as best he could at the beach just north of Dagobah. But it wasn't enough, and he felt filthy. Yeah, of course. I'll get a watch list set up for us while you're in there. You want to borrow some PJs? He asked. Yes, please. He must have soaped himself up and rinsed himself off 5 times before he finally felt clean. He didn't have a bandage to replace the one he had covering the stitches, so he just patted it dry. The PJs Shinso left for him were a little too big, but they were so cozy that he didn't care. When he puttered back to Shinso's room, the main light was off and the purple string lights were on. It made for a spooky atmosphere, but Izuku didn't mind it. When Shinso saw him, he patted the spot next to him on the bed and pressed play of the first movie of the night with no preamble. Izuku's not entirely sure if it was meant to be a horror comedy, but the two of them were laughing far more than they were flinching at the cheap jump scares. He played shitty movie after shitty movie as they both lay sprawled out on Shinso's bed, with blankets haphazardly spread across them. He doesn't remember even falling asleep, but he woke up to the smell of breakfast cooking and Shinso's foot in his face. He'd never been so content in his life. They futzed around until midday when Izuku finally left with a tummy full of breakfast and lunch and arms full of leftovers. Toshi, Kohaku asked. He was turning up the stairs to leave back up to his room after they saw Midoriya out. How's he doing? Do you know? She asked. His face fell at that. Oh, yeah. I meant to tell you about yesterday, but then he stayed the night, so I didn't get the chance. I don't think he got the black eye at home. I think he got it at school. There was this kid at the arcade, and when Midoriya saw him, he just froze and started pulling me away. That's why we were back early. He was still freaking out, so I didn't want to push him. All he said was the kid wasn't very nice to him, he explained. She trailed off, taking in the new information. She'd noticed the spike of panic when they'd gotten back to the library, and she didn't need her quirk to tell that something happened. He was damn near silent all the way home, but he seemed to get a hold of himself somewhere along the way. His emotions were always so guarded, which was troubling in and of itself, but especially so for someone so young. Even more so given the tidbits they'd been able to uncover about his life. She always felt him more here at home. He was calmer. He felt happy along with a mess of other things she couldn't quite parse out. It warmed her heart to know he felt safe here. She made sure to tell him he was always welcome, and she could only hope he'd come to them if he ever needed something. Did you notice anything off with him? He asked shyly. No, Toshi, no more than usual. He's happy here, though. He's happier when you're around, she said with a smile. Her grin widened at the blush that spread across his cheeks. Her boys were precious. Precious bumbling idiots. When Izuku got home, DJ was waiting for him at the hole in the wall where he usually entered. She looked at him and yowled before pressing up against his legs. He felt like he was being scolded for missing curfew. Sorry, DJ. I'll tell you next time I leave for the night, he laughed. She planted herself firmly on top of his feet and curled up. Oh, come on, DJ. You're being dramatic. Get off my feet. I can't stand here forever. She paid his pleading no mind. End of chapter.